Welcome everyone to the September Mayor's Update, and it's a little unusual this month as it's on a Tuesday and not a Thursday, and that may well happen next month as well. We'll just have to see. My guest today, and I'm very pleased to have as my guest Jeremy Parsons, the CEO of the Clay County Fair and Events Center, and also Jeremy has added a new title as well as the chair of the International Association of Fairs and Exhibitions, easy for me to say, and he may talk a little bit about that, I don't know, but quite an honor for us to have in our community a person from our fair who is the chair of that association. But before turning it over to Jeremy, I would just like to make a few comments about the 2022 Clay County Fair. I thought it was absolutely outstanding. I wasn't out there every day, but I think it's something that our community doesn't, but we really can't take for granted in terms of economic activity, in terms of culture, and all sorts of things. But I really want to thank Jeremy, his staff, the board, all of the volunteers throughout the community who really do make this the world's greatest county fair. The exhibits, the contests, the entertainment, the food, really a celebration of diversity was outstanding. And I did notice during the time I was on the grounds, more diversity than I've seen in past fairs. And I think that's a tribute to the Clay County Fair Association. I think it's a tribute to our community as well to celebrate that kind of diversity. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Jeremy Parsons, and who as the leader is responsible for coordinating this massive undertaking.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. You know, I'm glad to hear you mention about diversity, because that really has been something that we've been focused on, at the fair, especially that the fair needs to be the fair for everybody. And so that diversity this year kind of showed itself through a couple multicultural events we had, the Hispanic Festival and then the Native American Festival on the last day of the fair. But even some diversity in our grandstand lineup. Rap and hip hop made their debuts at the fair grandstand this year. So, that's really what it's about, is the fair providing something for everybody. And people always wonder, was the fair successful? And that's kind of a difficult question to answer because success comes in many different ways. But really for us, when you're blessed with 9 incredible days of weather, maybe 9 of the best weather days we've ever had at the fair, and you mix that with some great programming, it really does make for a successful fair. And so our attendance was up about 17% over 2021. We knew that was going to happen a little bit because still last year in 2021 there was some concerns over COVID, I think, more than now. And so people came back, and of course they enjoyed that great weather. So attendance was up, but really the numbers we really focus on are really what's important for us. And one of those numbers is youth participation. 750 4-H and FFA exhibitors competed at this year's fair. They came from 46 counties in 3 states, and those numbers are both up over last year. So, when you're getting kids from all over Iowa, Minnesota, and Nebraska at the Clay County Fair, that's good for our future. They're future fairgoers. And then just in terms of regular exhibitors, commercial exhibits and shopping is a big part of the fair. This year we had 456 vendors at the fair, and that's up from 466 vendors at this year's fair. That's up 10 from a year ago. So again, we continue to get back really into some pre-COVID numbers. The fair is a business, and so like any business, our vendors have been affected with labor issues and supply chain issues, and so it's always good to see those vendors back. And we know that fairgoers also had a good time. We're doing a fairgoer survey right now, and the response has been very positive, and we know they were also there spending money. And so fairgoer spending went over $3 million for the first time in the fair's history. That's just spending on food and rides, and so that's an exciting number to see as well. So some good metrics of success, and as you mentioned, it takes a huge group to make all this work. And so it starts with the 800 members of the Fair Association, a 27-person board of directors, a 10-person executive committee, 12 or 13 full-time employees, 40 seasonal employees, 400 fair time employees, thousands of volunteers to really make the fair work, and great partnership with the city as well. And I really want to thank Mayor Bomgaars and the council and all the city departments. You know, it takes everybody, and so obviously we depend on Spencer PD to provide, you know, some security for us in the evenings in the grandstand and at the carnival. And also solid waste is an important part of the fair. I just got some numbers from Thomas Clark with the city, and fairgoers this year generated 80,100 pounds of garbage that has to be removed from the fair over and over. But the number we're really excited about, this year we were able to recycle more than 7,000 pounds of cardboard. So 7,000 pounds, you know, that's what, 3.5 tons of cardboard did not go to the landfill, and we were able to recycle, and that's up about 1,000 pounds over a year ago. So again, I just want to thank the city for their great partnership in helping everything go at the Fair and Event Center. So I guess that's kind of a summary, Mr. Mayor, on really how the fair went. So.
Well, I don't know who was in charge of weather, but they need a bonus. There is no doubt about that.
Well, I'm going to take that claim. I told people the whole week the only thing I was really in charge of was the weather, and so it was an incredible day. You know, no rain, but also really not hot. It just was kind of right in the middle. And you know, when the weather's nice, you go to the fair more often and you stay longer. And so, you know, that was reflected in those attendance and spending numbers for sure.
It's really good to hear you talk about those numbers, and especially for kids.
Yeah.
Because as you say, they are the future. They are the future fairgoers, and you know, if they have a good time, they're going to be more likely to come back.
You know, definitely, and especially when they're coming from, you know, 46 counties in a 3-state region. Some of these kids are not what you would call local. You know, when they're coming to the fair, they're bringing their families, they're spending money while they're here in Spencer, not at the fair. But I also would say this, you know, some people are watching this and it's like, well, of course he's going to say good stuff. What's part of the fair that really needs fixing? Well, I'll answer that. And probably the only discouraging number really with this year's fair is just the fact that our grandstand lineup did not sell as many tickets as we would like. And so, you know, that responsibility falls to the same guy in charge of the weather. That's me. You know, obviously, booking some concerts that really did not maybe appeal to enough of our fairgoers. So the cool thing is, though, we do the fair every year, and so we're looking at how we reallocate those grandstand dollars and really book some shows that, again, bring more people to the fair and in turn bring more people to Spencer.
One of the things that I've noticed in the last couple of years, and maybe it's been a little bit longer than that, but the improvements that you've made on the fairgrounds itself, the pavilions, the more benches and places for people to rest, those kinds of small things seem to have rejuvenated the grounds itself and made it more appealing.
Well, thank you. And this year, more places than ever to sit at the fair. I think we added about 40 picnic tables and benches throughout the fairground. So that's something we continue, because we know that if you can sit, you'll rest and you'll stay longer at the fair and enjoy it. But thanks to the hard work of our charitable trust, which is our private kind of fundraising arm, a 501c3 arm of the fair that raises money for improvements, we're well over $2 million invested in the facility, you know, in the last few years. And you're right, a brand new Grandpa's Barn. This year we had new street paving, water improvements in our campgrounds. Again, you mentioned just better landscaping, more places to sit, you know, just continued improvements. A lot of the improvements fairgoers didn't see, but all around our livestock barns, we have new storm sewer in place, you know, for when those rains do come. And so, you know, and that's been because people in the community have invested and given to our charitable trust, you know, partnered with some grants and some gifts from the fair. And we've got some exciting plans. You know, one thing I can announce even right now is this year we paved or hard surfaced the street that ran from Grandpa's Barn to the Branding Iron, kind of by the outdoor arena. We just received a grant to finish paving that street to the south, so it'll be hard surfaced from the Branding Iron all the way down to the small animal barn. And that just makes it easier for fairgoers to, you know, enjoy the fair, especially those that may have some mobility issues.
Now, one of the things that was a little bit controversial about this year's fair was the implementation of a beer tent on the east side of the grandstand. And from all appearances, it seemed to have gone well. I don't believe that there were any problems with that at all.
You know, based on reports we've received from fair security, really no issues with that as well. And so really what that was the Coke Hospitality tent was on the east end of the grandstand. It was just open in the afternoons, limited beer and wine service for those who maybe wanted to have a beer or glass of wine with their meal. Again, it was a seating area, back to adding all those extra tables and benches. A bunch of those were in that area. And again, just an expansion of really the food portion of the fair. People tell us over and over that food is increasingly becoming a reason they come to the fair. And for some people, that food experience includes maybe a glass of wine or a beer with that meal. And so the Coke Hospitality tent on the east end of the grounds, provided that opportunity for those fairgoers. Again, there was no live music, so it really wasn't a beer garden type setting. It was just more of a location for people to sit and enjoy another part of the fair.
Well, Jeremy, I really want to thank you for coming in and talking about this year's edition of the Clay County Fair. It was a wonderful fair, wonderful weather, and thanks again to you, your staff, the board, everybody involved with the Clay County Fair. It really is an asset to our community.
Well, thank you. We know, when people go around the world, I guess, and you mentioned Spencer, Iowa, I always say they mention one of two things. They either mention the fair or the cat, as in Dewey. And so we take pretty seriously the role we play in the community, and we want to be a good community partner. Because a lot of people come to Spencer because of the fair, and we need to make sure we're doing all we can to make sure they have a good time so that they come back. And I guess really kind of a closing thing, if you get a chance, go to our website in the next few days before October 1st, claycountyfair.com. We've got a fairgoer survey there we'd like everybody to participate in so we can figure out ways of how we can make the world's greatest county fair even greater.
And one of the things, before I let you go, and I would be remiss in this, I believe, but in your position as chair of the International Association of Fairs and Exhibitions, we were talking just briefly before we went on air about that. And it's unusual for the CEO of a county fair to have that particular position. Can you explain a little bit about what that association does?
Sure.
and your role in that?
So the IAFE, which is a shorter way to, I won't try to say all that, I get stuck as well, but the IAFE really is an organization that's composed of more than 2,000 fairs, state fairs, county fairs, provincial fairs throughout the world. You'd be surprised maybe to know that there are fairs in England, in Australia, Canada, in Japan, South Korea that are pretty similar to our fairs. Obviously, every fair is unique, but something similar. So we have an international association, and I've had the honor to serve as chair of that. It's a one-year appointment, or one-year election, I guess, as chair of that board. The IFE is over 140 years old, and every year there's been a new chair. And only 8 of them in that 140-year history have come from county fairs. And 2 of them have come from the Clay County Fair. Miles Johnson back in 1990, as some of you may know or remember, and myself. And so it's just a great credit to really the reputation that the Clay County Fair has really throughout the world. And this year we had guests with us from the Clay County Fair in Florida, from the Erie County Fair in New York, from the Minnesota State Fair and the Nebraska State Fair. All coming, plus many other fairs as well, that really took the time to come to the fair this year to see what it is that we do and how we do it here in Spencer.
Well, and I think you do it very well. And again, thank you very much for coming in and sharing with us today about the Clay County Fair.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we'll get on with the business of the city. And again, thanks to Jeremy. The first thing that I have on the mayor's update is something that will be happening in October, and that's Trick or Treat Night. I had totally forgotten about setting and establishing a date for Trick or Treat Night, and until city staff says we need to get this done. So basically what I said was, well, what have we done in the past? Let's talk to the chief of police, Chief Warburton, about that. And Trick or Treat Night will be on October 30th. Monday night from 5 to 7. And for those people who would like to participate and hand out goodies to the little trick-or-treaters, please have your porch lights on. And 7 o'clock is a recommended time. Could go a little later than that, but if you run out of candy or treats, just turn your front porch light off, and nobody will be coming up and ringing your doorbell if you don't have that light on. Secondly, we have some information. I have some information to share with regard to the park. Parks and Recreation. City recently hired a new Park and Rec director, Bob Fullhart. He will be taking over for Jared Elbert, and he will be starting on October 10th, I believe. So we're excited to have Bob be part of the city staff. Also, I went to a park board meeting last week, and there were some very important topics I thought that were covered at that particular meeting. First of all, the campground manager was there, and she gave us a report and an update on what was going well and what wasn't working so well down at the campground, some things that needed improvements. First thing that she talked about was the bathroom and the shower facility at the campground needs some updating. We need more fire rings out at the campground. We have only 14 fire rings out at the campground, and they get dragged from place to place, and this causes some issues out there, so we need to address that particular issue. She also talked about the electric service, that we need to upgrade our electric service out there for the new campers that seem to be coming in. And she said that the parking lot, and we've known this for a long time, the parking lot out there is definitely an issue. And it's not just an issue for the campground, but it's also an issue for the band shell and the shelter house and and basically East Leach Park in general. The other item on the agenda at the park board was that was very interesting was the Fairview tennis courts. Now, this has been an ongoing issue. We've wanted to upgrade those courts, and this is a joint issue between the city and the school system. So we had representatives from the school at the meeting as well. For anybody who has looked at the Fairview courts, I think it's easy to see that they are in a very bad state of repair. They need to be upgraded significantly. And so earlier in the summer, I believe, maybe late spring, we sent out bids and to get those resurfaced. And really what the state of the art is for tennis courts right now is a product called post-tension concrete. And it's more expensive. However, it lasts longer. They are more maintenance free and will be much more durable and much better for the people who are playing tennis or pickleball. We're looking at tennis and pickleball courts as well. So this would be a city-school partnership. So we need to upgrade those, and we need to look at the location. So we've got the engineers that are going to resubmit the bids. Hopefully we will, those bids will come in a little bit better, but we need to look at whether they are going to go in at Fairview School, if we're going to keep that location for those tennis courts, or whether we're going to look at a new location. We'll have more to come on that. I think we're going to have a joint City Council, Park Board, school meeting here coming up in October, hopefully, and we'll hopefully have something more to say about that in the near future. Also want to mention the fire training facility. Several years ago, under the leadership of Chief Conyon, the city built a new fire training facility on East 4th Street, I should say. And I want folks to know that this is used not only by our fire department for training, but it's also used by local fire departments throughout Northwest Iowa, actually, for training. This week, for instance, we have communities coming in for grain bin extraction training. And with everybody knowing that the harvest is coming up, that is something that is just an invaluable resource for us to have within our community. I want to just mention a couple of public works projects. And a lot of times public works projects don't get the due that they should. And as a longtime coach, I always stress to whether it was basketball players or golfers that you need to take care of the fundamentals. And I think that public works kind of take care of the fundamentals and the foundation of your community. Streets and sewers and things like that, that sometimes we just take for granted. And we shouldn't take those kind of things for granted. So just a couple of public works projects that are going on and have gone on at this time. St. Luke's Street up by St. Luke's and Riverview up there, we've had that street resurfaced. And take a drive up there. If you haven't done so recently, it is very, very nice at this point. And used to have to dodge a few potholes. So that project's coming along very, very nicely. The boat ramp on the Little Sioux. When you drive across Grand Avenue from north to south and you look at that boat ramp that was put in, it's pretty amazing. And I've noticed that since we've gotten the boat ramp put in, the river's gone down and the number of kayakers and canoeists have gone down. But I expect that thing to be utilized so much more than it ever was in the past. And it has a great aesthetic view as well as being very utilitarian too. 14th Avenue and 4th Street, we're doing some, it's actually an SMU project, a water project on there. But we've got some sewer project that we're kind of working on as well. So 4th Street's going to have a detour for about 2 weeks, maybe not quite that long, but we are going to have to work around that detour for a while. And then we've got the 25th Street and 11th Avenue sewer project out on South Highway 71. That will be taking place, hopefully still going to get started on that yet later in the fall. And hopefully the construction season will go but longer, but I think that thing can go into later fall anyway. Another topic, and this is one that we tend not to think about too much as a community, but it's one that I think we need to be cognizant of, and that's our population of homeless and unsheltered people within the community. And we can't be blind to the needs of those folks in our community. To that end, on September 19th, I attended a meeting over at the County Administration Building with a housing committee made up of social service agencies, the county, Chief Warburton and I were there to represent the city. Clay County General Relief was there, the Spencer Ministerial Association, just several groups who have a concern about this particular situation. We were on a conference call with Melissa O'Neill, who is the head of the Central Iowa Sheltered Services organization in Des Moines. Now, you might think, well, Des Moines and Spencer, we have no real relationship there. We're totally different communities. Yes, that's true, but this is Central Iowa. So she also has dealings with Grinnell and Indianola and Ottumwa, which are communities more our size, and they're dealing with the same kinds of issues that we are with regard to homeless and unsheltered. And so in a rural sense, we have the same issues. The people who are unsheltered, who are homeless in Des Moines, have the same kinds of issues that the people who are homeless or unsheltered here in Spencer do. So she talked about just how to deal with those folks and how communities can deal with them from a funding standpoint, social services standpoint, etc. But one of the things that I was struck by was the fact that she said that it takes 8 interventions with a homeless or unsheltered person to have an impact. You're not just going to be able to go and have an exchange with them and say, well, you know, we can do this, we can do this, we can do that for you, and expect them just to take it, even if it's going to improve their situation. So she said, the thing to do is to just keep at it. Just be methodical. Just keep at it. Keep the conversations going with people, and at some point you're going to have some success. But she also talked about funding, grant funding especially. She talked about day services, job training, and she talked about the impact of mental illness and homeless and unsheltered, and how the two are very much correlated. And then a thing that struck home to me especially was the fact that we've also got kids who are involved. You know, it's not just adults. We've got a lot of kids that are homeless or unsheltered. They may come from homes that have some trouble within the home. They're going through a divorce or something like that, and the parents may be so involved in what's going on in their lives that the kids kind of fall through the cracks. And so the schools have a role to play in this as well. And you may not think about school kids as being homeless, but when a kid is going from friend to friend, couch surfing as they call it, that person does not have a regular home, and so they are considered homeless or unsheltered. So I think this is a topic that we need to address as a community, not just the city. It's going to take all hands on deck to wrap our arms around this. Next topic I'd like to mention is the trailer park situation. We've been dealing with that throughout the summer. Our planning department has done an excellent job, I think, in terms of keeping the conversation going with the trailer park owner with regard to what needs to happen in order to bring all of that trailer court back online with regard to power. But the important thing is that we've kept the lines of communication open. Right now we're going trailer by trailer. They're being inspected, and if they are up to code, the power can be turned on. Now, we also have some things out at the trailer court that need to be addressed in terms of nuisances, and we are working through those as well with the trailer court owner. Next, I'd like to just address a concern that several people have been bringing lately, and that's odor concerns from a plant on the west side of town in the West Industrial Park. We have seen some of those complaints increase lately. Today we met with a business out in the West Industrial Park to talk about those issues, and I just want folks to know that we are in conversations with the egg plant, and we know that they need to eradicate or mitigate those odors, and we will be talking with them more in the future to see what can be done to get that under control. Next, speaking of issues that a lot of people have on their minds, is the DOT. And we met a couple of weeks ago with the DOT representatives from the district in Sioux City. And of course, we were talking about the intersection at Highway 71 and 18. And basically, I just want folks to know that these conversations are ongoing, that basically we have the same goals, and especially now that the city has bought 44 acres in that Highway 71 corridor. So we want the same results. We want that intersection to be safe, but we also want to promote economic activity within that corridor. So one of the things that I would urge citizens to do, we have a letter on our website that Barry Anderson, who's the chair of the Clay County Supervisors, and I put together, and we sent to the DOT back in June. It could have been May or June, and expressing some of our concerns about the intersection and about some of the plans that DOT may have given us. So the other thing that we have up on our website is the response that we got, and it's a very detailed response that we got from the DOT in June. And I would urge citizens to read not only the letter, but also to read the response that we got from the DOT before you make your judgment about what needs to be done. And you have to understand that the DOT is staffed by engineers who, deal with traffic concerns on a daily basis. And sometimes the things that I think might be improvements might not be taken that way by the traffic engineers themselves. But I just urge you to take a look at that. So the next thing I'd like to bring up, we've got lots and lots of community events that we have coming up in the next that are ongoing, and also that we have going on and coming up in October. First thing I'd like to mention is Spencer Main Street is sponsoring the Wine Stroll. It's a very popular event. It starts at Wheezy's 2, Thursday, October 6th. It goes from 4:30 to 7. And Main Street Director Nancy Nave says it's the most popular event that they have in the that Main Street sponsors all year. Secondly, the Heritage Center has a wonderful exhibit, and I've mentioned this before. It's on Marion Helland, and it's entitled Marion Helland, 9 Decades of Civil Rights Service, and it's going through the 16th of December. Marion Helland was a teacher who taught down in the South in Mississippi and Alabama in the freedom schools during the civil rights movement, and her niece, Diana Coppin, and I believe Diana's sister, wrote a book and unpacked this treasure trove of materials that is now the foundation of that exhibit down at the Heritage Center. It's a wonderful exhibit. If you get an opportunity, go and see it. Arts on Grand has quite an exhibit going as well. It's by Carl Wesley. It's entitled In My Shoes, Reverences and Remembrances. It's a multimedia exhibit, and it's something that we don't normally see here in Spencer, Iowa. This is the kind of exhibit I think you'd probably find in a much larger community, but that exhibit goes through October 29th, and again, I'd urge you to get down there and see it. It's really remarkable. SCT is having its first performance of the new year, Young Frankenstein, and that opens October 7th. This Saturday, October 1st, we have the Artisans Roadshow. Local artists will be exhibiting their wares at their studios. And then I'd also like to shout out to the Spencer High School for having a very successful homecoming, which was capped with a victory over Denison in the football game. And then the last thing that I'd like to mention in terms of community events is an event that is being held Tuesday, October 11 at 6 o'clock at Sacred Heart Church. Sister Shirley Finneran from the Lila May House in Sioux City is making a presentation entitled Modern Day Slavery, Human Trafficking. The Lila May Center in Sioux City, you may not know, but it basically is a residential home for the women victims of human trafficking. And this is an issue that I think we also need to be aware of within our community as well. So if you get an opportunity on Tuesday, October 11 at 6 o'clock, take that into, put it on your calendar. So again, I'd like to thank Jeremy Parsons from the Clay County Fair for coming in and being my guest today on the Mayor's Update. And I'd also like to end with something I think that I mentioned this in February when it was a very hot topic, and that is we can't forget those people who are fighting for freedom against oppression in Ukraine. It's a very brave and valiant struggle, and I'm not sure that a lot of people thought that it would be going on this long. And a credit to the Ukrainians in their struggle for freedom. So with that, I'd just like to say take care and do good. Thank you very much.